This is Rolling the Grind, the Jiu-Jitsu Institute podcast with Ben Eaton. Here I explore and take deep dives about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, human performance, sports psychology, philosophy, and how to stay the path.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the first episode of my Rolling the Grind podcast. This is my first ever podcast where I connect with people, discuss and learn more about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, optimizing performance, sports psychology, philosophy, and how it all relates to training, competition, and overall dedicated lifestyle. First, I want to thank everybody who's really supported and encouraged me on my path to do this. I had a lot of people reach out to me and say, you should do a podcast, you should do this, you should do that, and everything. And yeah, I never want to be the person in front on camera. You know, it's like I love the conversations and everything, but you know, this is all new to me. But we're in this situation that it forces us all to adapt. So here we go, you know, and, so I definitely want to thank, my professors, mentors, my brothers, Salman Shanji, all my teammates, you know, not just around the country, but all over the world that I've been connected to and talking to, and as well as all my dedicated students. For those guys who don't know, first time watching this podcast, my name is Ben Eaton. I'm currently a third-degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I'm one of the Salman Shanji's first generation of American students, and I'm the sixth American to be promoted to black belt by Salo. I own my own academy, which is called the Jiu-Jitsu Institute. It's in Yorktown, Virginia, and I'm also the East Coast director for the East Coast Tibero affiliates. And so this is episode 1, the origin story. My first two guests are Lionel Gonzalez and Mike Torres, who are my first two students when I first moved to Virginia and opened my very first full-time academy. And I would definitely say that the three of us were all white belts together at the same time for many, many, many reasons. And I just moved to a whole new area. I came from the Midwest, born in St. Louis, then moved to Indiana, and then moved to Virginia where I knew nobody around really. And, never ran a business before, never ran an academy full-time before. I came in with zero money, zero resources, but I just had this passion for jiu-jitsu and I just did not want to do anything else. So it's like I didn't know what I was doing at first, but I just dove in and, just got my reps in and learned a lot through the whole process. It's never done this before. So pretty much, we all started this journey together. And this is many ways the origin story of the Jiu-Jitsu Institute. So first, I want to introduce Lionel Gonzalez and Mike Torres. So each of you can, just tell us a little bit about yourselves. Where are you presently located? What's your profession? And what are your current ranks?
Go, Mike. You can go first.
All right. My name is Mike Torres. I'm currently a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, and I run my own full-time academy in Houston, Texas, which is the north side of Houston. Houston's fairly big, and we have a lot of big city, a lot of people, huge population, a lot of academies out here in Houston. So the market's kind of thriving out here. I teach full time now. I run a full-time academy. And that's pretty much it where I'm at right now.
Nice. All right. What about you, Lionel?
Lionel Gonzalez. I am a active duty service member for the Army. Currently a brown belt, and I'm out here living in Tokyo, Japan, kind of hanging out.
Nice. And you're still training. So
I'm gonna have to pay you a visit real soon.
Yeah. I only spent a couple hours in Tokyo on my layover to Korea.
Hey man, I'm here, man. I'm here. I'll be your guys' tour guide, dude.
Yeah, I so wish I had a day layover. It was so sad. I'm looking out the window, seeing Mount Fuji, and I just wanted to go explore and had to make my connection. And I'd always wanted to go to Japan, and I was there for a few hours, and it was just such a tease. But I definitely want to go out there.
That's pretty cool out here.
Yeah.
I mean, you get over the prices real fast though. Like you'll start to feel it like week 2. You'll be like, maybe I don't want to take that taxi right now.
Oh yeah, with the exchange, man, that's crazy. So so you guys, both started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu pretty much with me, and so you guys got introduced with combatives first. But like, what, so that was your first introduction to like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and grappling and all that. What kind of like sports did you guys play growing up? Were you athletes or anything like that, or what?
Yeah, I would say I was kind of a young athlete. I did multiple sports. I did like football, soccer, track, mostly football growing up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, nothing like, I wasn't like, a top tier athlete in a lot of things. I think once I got introduced to jiu-jitsu, that's where like, okay, my athleticism started to shine a little bit more, because you don't have to be that athletic to do jiu-jitsu, right? I mean, you have to be athletic, period. But I would definitely say like my jiu-jitsu started at your academy with you and Lionel, and then I kind of found my way into the combatives world through the military.
Yeah, but so as far as like football and stuff like that, were you just like, were you passionate about it, or or is it just like an athletics thing? Because a lot of people
It's definitely athletic. I was the type of person that needs to move. Like even now, I need to move. Like I need to do something active. I had a lot of aggression growing up as a young ways to like get that aggression out. But I was also very much a pacifist, if that makes any sense. So it was like kind of to myself, but at the same time I had this like thing inside of me that I just had to get out, but had to find a way to let that aggression out. And I guess it started off with football, and then eventually out of high school, going to the military, got introduced to jiu-jitsu, and that kind of took over my whole life. It's crazy because I used to watch like football like every Sunday, all the games, all the players, all the stuff about football. I was a huge fan. And then jiu-jitsu like just took over my whole life, hijacked it, and then I don't even follow football anymore. And I live in Texas, which is football state.
Yeah,
everyone
sacrilege.
Monday Night Football, you expect to have a really small class on Monday Night Football.
Oh yeah, man. Oh, I bet. What about you, Lionel?
Man, growing up, dude, I didn't have an athletic bone in my body. I think I first started to do exercise like when I literally joined the Army. It was funny because like so when you join the Army, they make you do like this physical fitness test before they ship you off to basic training. And Mike knows this, and like so like you're in reception and you have to be able to do 5 push-ups before you're able to get on the bus to go to where your basic training is going to be located at. And dude, I couldn't even do the 5 push-ups. I was like practicing just to get to the 5 push-ups, just to start basic training. So yeah, so I really didn't do that much besides like video games growing up and stuff. Like jiu-jitsu was probably like the first thing that besides my job that I actually took seriously, like physical fitness wise.
I see. So it was more like your first physical video game kind of thing.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because you kind of have the same approach with it,
Yeah.
When I see you train and study and stuff like that. Yeah, that's crazy. So Mike was the most athletic out of all 3 of us, pretty much. Because I could barely do a single pull-up when I first started doing jiu-jitsu. I mean, I never an athlete.
That's not all true, because like when Lionel and I first met, it was the time of my life where I was like about to get kicked out of the military. And
this is true.
Yeah, you were like,
this is true. And you were my boss. He was my CEO. So he was the guy that was like, hey, like if you don't get your stuff together, I'm gonna have to kick you out. So, but he was also like, it was good because I considered him a boss, but also a friend.
Yeah.
And the way his approach to it was very unique, whereas most people would just kind of drill you. Mm-hmm. And his approach was like he found something that I was like actually kind of good at, which was like the combatives. We kind of did the combatives thing one day, and then he's like, "Man, you should come to the jiu-jitsu thing with me."
Nice.
And then I was like, oh, okay. And at that time, I wasn't really motivated to do a whole lot of things. But it was like one of those things where I was like, I had to not be so shy about it. I think I was more shy about it than anything.
Yeah.
Because I just felt like, I was kind of an introvert, I guess. And he kind of like helped me break out of that and just like, okay, let's just go. He was like, I'm going to drive you. And he's like, all right, if you drive me, I'll go. And ever since that, that's been my way to motivate people to try jiu-jitsu. I don't take no, like, I won't really take no for an answer. I would just pester them. Be like, okay, you coming today? Okay, let's schedule a time for you to come in today, and then we'll do something. If you need a ride, let me know. I'll come pick you up. So.
Yeah. No, I still remember like you had to be convinced, like you and I are a lot alike in that way where we're kind of introverted and we observe, but we're also, someone's like, hey, do this. And we're like, why? Like I'm gonna sit back. I'm gonna watch you for a while and I'll make my own mind. But once you make your own mind, then you're on. It's like, and that was really cool where like Lionel, instead of, he pressured you the right way by like finding a common ground.
Yes.
He looked for your interest to help guide you so that it basically pointed you in a direction and then you did the work.
Yeah. Well, like I don't think I clarified, but the reason why I was going to get kicked out of the military is because of like failed PT tests, overweight, things like that, things that certain things you have to maintain throughout your military career. And I was just kind of like, I had the wrong mindset, wrong attitude about it, like the wrong people at a really young age. So like, yeah, I mean, in a way, it kind of saved it. I mean, it saved me. It saved my career in the military. And
yeah. Well, it's
well,
like
that's like really thanks to you, Lionel.
well, it's like you had a it's like I remember it's like you were around like what 230. I mean, you were lifting heavy, and I mean, I think you were more comfortable with like lifting heavy and being strong. And then I remember when we first trained, it's like you were coming after me, and everything, and it's like, and you would gas out after like 40 seconds and everything, and you would be quiet about it, but I could tell you were not happy about it. And then once you caught your breath again, you would come after me again and everything, and it's like you had to convince yourself. And then once you did that, you put the things in place which made your transformations in your body, kind of thing with your nutrition, and you change your workouts, and it's like you put the lifestyle things in place because you had to be convinced, I think. Because you're a lot like me where nobody's going to force you to do anything, even if you know it's good for you. It's like you kind of have to do it on your own volition, But
and again, it was unique in a way because like Lionel and I were both in the same company, same unit, same platoon. So it's like we became addicted to jiu-jitsu at like this, I would say at the same time. Whereas we would go to the gym at lunchtime and roll and bring our gis to work, and like we'll be in the office rolling on concrete floor, demonstrating moves or trying moves on YouTube.
Well, I mean, and I remember, when I first moved to Virginia, it's like Lionel's apartment, his front door was directly across from my front door. And you were still in Iraq, I believe, on deployment. When you came back, it's like, okay, let's figure this out. And I didn't even have the academy yet, so then we would go to hybrid together over in Virginia Beach, over at Scotty Oates' place. And I started showing you some stuff there where you had a little bit of combative background, but, it's like we started learning jiu-jitsu. And then once we got the academy open, and then that's when you brought, Mike and everything. But it's like we started training even before the academy doors opened, because I was still trying to figure out like a location and trying to figure out how to get that all started.
That's actually like a story that I love to tell, especially like your guys. Like, I'm like, I'll be like, hey, I remember when I first heard about jiu-jitsu, I was like, I had this next door neighbor and he was walking his dog. And we kind of like knew each other a little bit, and we met each other in passing, and it was like on a Saturday, and we saw each other outside. I think I was throwing out my garbage, and you were outside, and you were like, "Hey man, you want to go try jiu-jitsu? And I was like, what's jiu-jitsu? And you were like, oh man, it's just like wrestling with pajamas. And I was like, yeah, sure. I was like, I don't got nothing else going on today.
Yeah.
And then we hopped in. I think you had an SUV at the time. It was before you had the Jeep.
I had a Ford 500, and then I had my Honda CBR 1000 RR.
Yeah.
I remember.
Bike, right?
I remember both of us going to go train in Virginia Beach and going through the tunnel on our bikes, and I mean, scariness. Scariness. I mean, even people with regular cars can't even go down there without wrecking every day in there. It's like, yeah, we took some risks. It was wild.
You took me to Scott's place, and then I got beat up by some 14-year-old, and I was like,
it was so funny.
What is this wizardry?
That's always the most fun thing, watching a big clueless white belt just getting, just tooled on by somebody who's so totally small and a nerd and everything. And it's like that's the cool thing about jiu-jitsu. It's like, that's where the nerds rule. And if you don't know, it's like man, no, that was fun. But you had that very childlike approach to it. It was so cool. It's kind of like when you show somebody something and you kind of like see the spark light up. Oh, this is kind of cool. Or even when they get stuff done to them, it's like that was like because you're both different but complementary. And that was like the cool thing. So it's like you have two guys, you have this thing in common, and their personalities are a little different, but they fit really well. And I think you guys really needed that, because you guys balanced each other out.
Yeah, for sure. I think so too. Yeah.
I definitely needed it because, I don't think I would have probably stuck with it within my first month if it wasn't for Lionel, to be honest.
Well, and I think that's also one of the reasons why so many people quit, because it's so hard. And they don't have like if you start as an individual and you remain as an individual, so you have your pre-jiu-jitsu experience, and then your eyes get opened on everything that's out there, everything that you don't know, and that's a hard thing to deal with for some people. I mean, I've seen people have just complete breakdowns because they got handled by somebody like a third of their size on the mat, and they never thought that would be possible. They just can't handle that. Other people see that as like, oh my gosh, I can learn this. And if they don't have somebody to kind of like help them along that's in the same position as them. I mean, you guys were starting for similar reasons and slightly different reasons, but you were starting at the same time. So you had each other to kind of like lean on and bounce the situation off each other as you guys were starting this journey. And so you helped each other get through hard things, as you guys were, entering in this whole new world. Whereas if you guys had been started alone individually, you might have not helped each other, had someone to help you get through that. Kind of like when I was listening to you, Mike, on your podcast, something that struck a chord with me that it's like we forget a lot. You said you got to find like, why are they training? And other than we as instructors and academy owners, we think everybody should be loving jiu-jitsu as much as we do and all this stuff and everything. And but we very much forget, like, well, why are they doing this? And if we don't know, and they might lose sight of that through the tough times, tough situation, then it's so easy to quit, and not continue. But if you have like someone who's going through the process with you, and you're both in these beginning stages, then you have each other to lean on and help push each other through. Where who knows, I mean, you guys were two of most dedicated students, and you guys were the reasons why there's locks on the doors to academies. You know, every day you guys would come in and give 100%, and you would leave tired and happy, frustrated, and all kinds of things. And it's like, and then the next day, all over again. You know, or sometimes you get guys that when things are good, they're in their, you know, they have their training rhythm when they're feeling good, and then there's the training rhythm when they're not feeling good, and they're two absolute different things. And it's like, well, you didn't base it off of feeling good. You based it off of the process and helping each other get through it. You know, and it's like, you know, that's the biggest challenge is with running an academy, is getting a new student past the first like 100 days, because you're developing a habit and a mindset. And I mean, if you're not already have a good grasp of the process, then it's just like all you think of is you're terrible, and this is, you know, everything hurts and everything.
It's easy. It's easy to think about all the things that go wrong. You know, it's easy to think about all the things that could possibly go wrong and what you're not doing so well and things like that. And I always typically tell people, like, especially when they sign up, like, give it 3 weeks. In 3 weeks, you're gonna look back 3 weeks. You look back 3 weeks, and you're gonna notice that there's a different person already developing.
Yeah.
You know, just skill, health, benefits, things like that.
Yeah.
But like, even when I have somebody come through the academy, it's an interview process. I'm asking them like a series of questions, like a lot of questions. And the questions that I'm asking, trying to like, okay, we're trying to find out why you looked for us in the first place. What are you interested in? You know, has anything happened to help develop that interest? You know, and then, you know, what are your goals and things like that. And I use those interviews as a reference to always pull somebody back into the program if they are feeling like, if I feel that they're falling off. You know, it's like, you got to kind of remind them, you know, this is why you joined us originally in the beginning, you know. And things are getting pretty hard right now. Yeah, you're the white belt. Yeah, you're the brand new guy that doesn't know anything, and it's going to be that way. But you have to kind of cherish those moments a little bit, and then remind yourself, I started this because I was overweight. I started this because I was smoking a pack a day, drinking beers every day, and my lifestyle was terrible, right? And these are the reasons, you know, you kind of like help them remind them of why you're starting it, you know. But not only that, but it also gives them a sense of value in the program. It makes them realize that, oh, this is a valuable program, because it's not just about showing up and training. It's personal with the instructor. It should be personal, you know. Even with the coaches, like, your coaches should be personal with your students. And I tell my coaches this all the time. It's like, you guys need to kind of bring somebody underneath your arm and like just kind of check on them on a daily basis. You can check on them every other day, especially if you feel like they're the type of person that can fall off, you know, really quick. Yeah. So it's definitely team accountability.
Yeah. So like one of the hardest things, like, I've been training since 96. 96 is when I started training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And so it's very easy for someone like me to forget what it's like, you know, my first day, first class. And but when I think about it, I still remember my very first day, my very first class. And I took a Japanese jiu-jitsu class, and my instructor, his name's Randy Harvell, who I every time I go to Indiana, I visit him, and you know, we trade techniques, and you know, he wants to hear about everything and all that. And he's been so supportive. But I remember just being worked by a 52-year-old man with a little potbelly and giggling at me, you know, and how awful and helpless I was and everything. And I just remember that feeling of like, this guy could end my life right now, but he's just amused and he's letting me, you know, like, flail away, you know, like I never had to worry about being injured. But it was like everything I tried, nothing worked. But I felt like this guy's going to show me, you know, and everything. And so I had a really good experience with my first class and all that and everything. So do you guys like remember your first class or first experience, or like what are some of the things that stuck out, and like what was your impression like before, and do you remember like what changed after like that first kind of experience?
Yeah, for me, I know that I went to hybrid one time with you, but I don't really consider that my first class. I consider my first class was the first day you opened the school was literally like the first day, and I think it was just me and you that day.
Probably was, yeah.
I think it was just me and you.
Yeah, you were my.
There was
yeah.
nobody else.
Yeah, you were my first enrollment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember
That was
that
my
day.
second.
You were like, okay, Lionel, show me, what is it that you think that you know and stuff like that. And I was like, yeah, I'll show this guy that I've seen a couple moves and stuff like that. And I just remember that feeling of like, I felt like a fish out of water, but certainly like I felt like you were the dude that I was going to be like, okay, this guy's going to be able to guide me to be able to go where I want to go. Mm-hmm. And that's also because you were talking earlier about why people quit, right? Why students quit, especially early on in their journey per se, right? And I know for me personally, a big reason why I didn't quit jiu-jitsu was because it was because of you, because you never made me feel like I had to be good. You were just like, hey, yeah, you go at your own pace, and you'll figure it out. Just keep on coming back. Yeah. And you never made me feel like the pressure, like, well, this guy doesn't get it. You never made me feel like that. I think that's super important. It kind of goes back to what Mike was saying earlier too about that personal relationship with the students. That's super important, man, because especially like the newer guys, whether they like to admit it or not, they're looking for that gratification from the person who is teaching them. And if they don't receive it, to whatever capacity, they're gonna automatically feel like they're not meeting the mark, and they're gonna feel some type of way about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was my first experience.
Nice.
Yeah, it's definitely easy to lose that sense of like the personal interaction with people once you become a bigger academy, and I think like once you become bigger, you kind of have to figure out other ways to delegate that to some of your coaches to be able to like say, hey, which is kind of like a situation that I've been in recently where it's like, okay, we're getting kind of big and we're looking at moving, and I'm trying to focus more on enrollments and things like that. And so I'm starting to have to delegate more classes to some of the coaches to be like, hey, you take care of this, I'll take care of the marketing and enrollments and things like that. So
it's hard, man, especially when they think that running an academy, all you do is train.
Yeah, that's true.
Man,
all the time. It's a delicate balance.
I had a guy tell me once. He looked me dead in the eye, and this guy was like a lifelong martial artist. Like he'd done judo for like his whole life, and everything. And I remember he looked at me one time, and he was just like, "Man, your job's got to be so awesome. I mean, you only have to work a couple hours a day, and you just roll." I wanted to punch him right in the face. I mean, I was just like, "Are you kidding me?" It's just like, wow. Because I mean, you'll quickly learn like. And actually, Salo was living with me. He was staying with me just a few weeks ago. He came down here to Virginia, and he stayed with me for a week in my house and everything, and trained a lot and everything, and did seminars, stuff like too. But we mostly a lot of training, a lot of hanging out and everything, because we go back, like 19 years, Salo and I, and I kind of told him, like, listen, it's like the only reason I own an academy is because I love jiu-jitsu so much, and I love being a student so much that everybody else quit around me, that the only way for me to keep training is because I'm a remote student now. is to run my own academy. And it's like, I never had an aspiration. I want to run my academy. I want to do this and everything. All I wanted to do was learn and train. That's all I could think of. And so by default, I'm running an academy, and I quickly found out, like with you guys, like I was an absolute white belt with knowing how to be a good instructor, run an academy, all this stuff, because I taught part-time, so I rented a aerobics room in a fitness gym, and I had my full-time career, and on my days off, I would do the like 2.5 hour drive one way to Toledo and go train with Sal and Shanji, or I do the 3 hour 45 minute drive to Detroit to their academy up there, and I would immerse myself there, and then I would throughout the next visit, the next week, all I would do is I'd be repping it with my students. So it's like I would learn, and then I would immediately get all my reps in with students, like teaching them, but it's like I was getting my reps in and they were along for the ride. And then when I became a full-time academy owner, I had no idea. It's like I had no idea like what I was doing as far as running a business or, bringing people up like that. So I was an absolute white belt. And I just like everything else, just like jiu-jitsu, I had to learn everything the hard way. And it was a lot. And I was just so thankful with you two that I didn't have to deal with anything else but you guys showing up every day, give me 100% willing to learn. And so that like made up for all my errors and all the things I didn't know, because you guys, I never had to motivate you guys ever. I don't remember ever having to motivate you guys. That's like one of my biggest frustrations is, when you get students that, they tell you, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this. And it's like, show me, you guys, it's like you guys just kept coming back every day over and over, give me 100% and everything. And it's like, even if you don't know what you're doing and we're all kind of sloppy, we were all giving 100% effort, and we had a common goal and a common bond. And so that made up for all the things that we didn't know how to do right, I think, and that really carried us through, and so it gave me an incredible experience with starting an academy, because I didn't have an academy full of people who were like not motivated or maybe toxic or whatever. It's like I had you two, and so it's like, okay, I'm gonna just teach you what Salo and Shanji poured into me, and then I had to figure out the rest as we grew, and the more successful we got, then the more skill set I had to learn. And still, learning every day, and like running an academy, it's I love jiu-jitsu so much, but every student, my responsibility is to take care of them on their journey. So every student is like one step away from me and me being totally selfish with my jiu-jitsu, and it's like, and I'm not complaining about that. It's just the reality of like, it's class time is my students' time and your guys' time and all this stuff. And then we had to find our own training outside of that, you guys taught me a lot.
Yeah.
I think we just had an incredible dynamic that we hit the lottery, I think. I know I did with you two, for sure. And just seeing over the years, it's going to be 10 years, I think, in December.
Yeah.
And I asked Mike this the other day. It's like, okay, mine. I'll ask you this. You never quit. How many people around you have ever quit?
Quite a few.
Yeah. And so it's like, what are the odds? My first two students I'd be talking to 10 years from now, and you both guys are training, you both love jiu-jitsu, you know, Mike's making his living off of it, and you're still passionate and all about training, and you guys are high ranks, and you know it's part of your lives, and it's like, well, I'm thankful I didn't ruin it for you guys. You know, it's like because it's an amazing thing. I mean, look at the situation we're in now. I mean, how would we be dealing with like the whole coronavirus thing if we did not have jiu-jitsu in our life? Like, who would we be?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, I would definitely be a different person. I tell people this all the time. Jiu-jitsu has definitely mellowed me out a little bit. It's giving me a clearer head.
Yeah.
Yeah, the cliche is definitely real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows? I'd probably be one of those people, you know, hoarding toilet paper right now if I didn't have jiu-jitsu. I mean, I probably wouldn't even be alive, you know, for sure. You know, and I certainly wouldn't be happy or fulfilled without jiu-jitsu. There's no way, you know, and it's just like incredible, this thing, that the timing, you know, of like the start with you guys, because I never had to motivate you guys. That was like the biggest challenge that I have. You know, I tell people, you know, in class when they're just kind of like, I'll show a move and you know, some person might be drawing it. Okay, I'm going to do 2 times this way, 2 times that way. Okay, I'm good. Let's roll. You know, and you're like, yeah, but you're terrible. You know, it's like, let's get better and all this stuff. You guys wanted to get good. You know, I never had it. You know, it's like I never had to tell you guys, like, come on, stop being lazy. You know, it's like you guys provided all that.
Just to kind of like jump on that a little bit. I remember like when I used to train with Lionel and I used to drill, like, and I always tell people this, I say this all the time. I mean, it's probably like a military term too. So you have to drill with a purpose. Like you cannot just go through the motions, right? And like you and we would drill and then you'd be like, all right, I'll give you some little bit of resistance and I'll give you a little bit of resistance. And then, you know, as white belts, eventually it turned into like a little bit of a sparring match, but it was also like a confidence builder. And it was like, that was taught so early on for me that it made a huge difference in the way that I trained and drilled. Like even now when I drill, like you see some, like I post a lot of drilling videos, and like the drills that I implement now into my training are, you know, you're going to get a workout. You're going to sweat, like you're going to move, like you're going to move your butt. And I always tell my students that, you know, I'm always like, you guys, you can't just do the move like 2-3 times and then sit there. Like, change the way you drill it. If it starts to get a little bit boring the first 2-3 reps, well then change how you're drilling it. Change the intensity. Tell him to frame here. Tell him to post here. What adjustments are you going to make from this point on? You know, and that's like where you start to. That's when the hamster wheel starts to turn a little bit. It's like, oh, okay, well this is just another way to deal with this person's guard. You know, deal with this person's strength. Deal with this person's pressure, things like that. So so we would definitely do that, and I think I really appreciated that, like starting jiu-jitsu.
So so you both made changes, you know, and that's like the first thing I notice with guys, you know, and ladies, that when they start jiu-jitsu, when they're kind of like, when it takes, you know, when they start getting serious about it, is little changes, little lifestyle changes. Like, you know, it's like they'll stop drinking soda and drink more water because they start enjoying jiu-jitsu, and then they're like, ooh, this is holding me back, you know, or they're smoking and they're having fun, but then their lungs can't keep up, and so they have to miss out and everything, and so they start making little habits, because now that change of a bad habit actually has more value than the instant gratification of, you know, like that cigarette or that soda or something like that. What were like the first little changes you guys started to make as far as like your lifestyle routine that kind of started things off for you guys?
Well, I know for me, like off rip, the first change that I noticed was like my time management, because I went from just basically just going to work and then going home and like, you know, playing video games or something, and then all of a sudden, you know, I had this thing and everything had to be planned around this class. I knew that I had to be at at the academy from 6:30 to 8:30, and everything had to be planned to the left and to the right of it. So that's the immediate change that I noticed.
Yeah.
That time was blocked off. That was my time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did you start doing that with other things then as well?
Absolutely. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. No, that's huge. That
I feel like I would
create a habit
with you. Yeah, good, like creating a habit. And but that's another thing too. I always tell people is like, there's 24 hours in a day. 24 hours, you could give yourself 1 hour. You know what I mean? It's like, what are you making out of 1 hour? Even if it's like an hour class, you need to do something for yourself, selfishly. There's nothing wrong with being selfish. And I feel like we were so like selfish starting out, with our training. And I completely relate to that, because I remember I wouldn't do things, or I would cancel on people, or I would just find ways out of certain things just so that I can keep training, because I knew how good I felt at training and stuff. But for me, like that time, again, like I was still very young. I was like 19, and it was really easy to start developing bad habits within your environment, just depending on your environment. And I remember, like, I lived in the barracks, he didn't live in the barracks. So when I lived in the barracks, there's like barracks parties like every single night. You walk out your patio and somebody's handing you a drink. And that was the thing that I would do like every single night when I was that age. I would just go outside, hang out at somebody's room, we'll drink, smoke cigarettes, stay up all night, wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning, do PT. And then you end up showing up late to PT, or you just can't run 2-3 miles because you're hungover and you ate like crap the other night. So that was immediately like the first things that changed for me was I quit smoking cigarettes cold turkey. And that process was very unique as well, because it was one day I was training and I was like, man, I don't feel good today, and I shouldn't. I hate, and I guess in a way I'm like, I'm really competitive, like I'm very, very competitive. So I start noticing that I'm falling behind, and if it's something that I can control, the reason why I'm falling behind is something that's within my control, then I need to change that. And that one thing that I changed was just stop smoking cigarettes cold turkey, because I wasn't satisfied how the quality of my training was. So I immediately stopped smoking cigarettes, and then I would get home and I would immediately fall asleep after training. So therefore I would wake up in the morning, I'll do PT, feel like $1 million. I mean, I miss being 19, obviously, but
don't we all?
3-5 mile runs at 6 o'clock in the morning, and go train jiu-jitsu at night for 2-3 hours, and then wake up 5 hours later and do it all over again.
That's crazy. I mean, I started jiu-jitsu at 19 as well. I mean, pretty much. I think I was like 19 years old. Same thing. I mean, so like when you guys were making these changes, do you what were your social circles like? Were they supportive of that, or did they try and like pull you back in the same old routine, or how did that dynamic go?
I think my social circle was pretty supportive. I think my social circle was Mike. Because I worked with them every day. So and that's why I pulled them, because I was like, I like this kid. I'm gonna take him with me to class, and then and then that whole thing started. So like, my social circle was pretty supportive. And as a matter of fact, it became to the point where I kind of pulled Mike in, and then 2 or 3 months later, I was finding inspiration in Mike to go train. So it was coming full circle there.
Oh
yeah.
I mean, again, like it's very, very similar. I didn't really have a whole lot of like friends, I guess. I can name like maybe 2-3 at that time that I was really close with, but other than that, like my circle was like jiu-jitsu, that was it. Like it was just the people that I trained with. It was the team, the family, and it was like, you just kind of look forward to seeing people every day and training with people. You look forward to having that moment on the mat where it's just jiu-jitsu, nothing else. It's not work. It's not life. It's just,
well, I mean, that's the thing. Like what I and I told Salo this a long time ago, what I wanted to model my academy over is like using the Starbucks model. It's like, I want to build that third place. It's like, you have to be home, you have to be at work, but where do you want to be? And it's like, I want a place where you can have the most horrible day in the world, and that will be just the best part of your day. And if you could just get in your training, then you just leave that all behind for a little bit, and then when you're done training, it's like your mind is clear and it puts things into perspective more, and you're able to deal with that situation better. And but also it's like, but you gotta buy into it, and that's one thing that I notice when people come in and they might have a negative lifestyle, negative circles. It's like, they're gonna start making changes, and then there's gonna be a bit of a strain, because you're moving in a different direction, whereas if your circles are moving down, then that's going to cause a rift, and you got to make a choice sometimes, and I mean, we know all the people that, it's like, it certainly saved us. I mean, there's people in my academy that, they got arrested for, being drunk or something like that. And it was like, that was like rock bottom for them. And then the next day they're like, I need something positive in my life. And they start jujitsu, and it just takes, and then there's other guys who are just like really good people, but they're connected to some bad stuff, and maybe they just come from a place that's not so good or whatever. And they start being valued for who they actually, the good parts of them are. Because the beautiful thing about jiu-jitsu, I mean, I don't care what you drive, what's in your bank account or whatever. You go on the mat, I see who you are. I see who the grinders are. I see who, the people who, when things get tough, they fold. I see the people who are kind. I see the people who are selfish. It's like, it plays out. And, you have these people that come in and they might have negative circles. And then all of a sudden there's this group of people that see the good parts of you that the negative circles don't. And they start gravitating towards that more. And then the negative circles, they get offended because you're now rejecting them, and they want to pull you back in. And some people make the choices that are better for them. And, then unfortunately there are some people that don't, I mean, I know of a couple people that have so much good in them, and everybody in the academy loves them, but they just cannot shake that loose somehow, but jiu-jitsu, and obviously their life is going downhill because they're not in jiu-jitsu. And so something else fills that gap, and it's something that's not doing what jiu-jitsu does for you, and when Sal was here, he did did like an instructor clinic, and it's kind of like going back to talking about your why, he was telling me that, he was at a place, and there was this guy who was like being pretty cocky and arrogant, and he says something to Sal like about jiu-jitsu or whatever, and I wish I could remember the exact statement or question. And Sal presented that to us. He's like, what if a guy says, oh, you think you're tough and all this stuff, you do jiu-jitsu, all this stuff. And he's like, what would your response be? And most of us would be like, we'd respond with, yeah, I do jiu-jitsu, I can do this and I do that, whatever. And all that's doing is playing into their ego. He goes, instead, he asks this guy, what do you do that pushes you to be your best self and shows all the negative qualities that need to be taken out and brings you to a better place? Like, what do you do that makes your life so much better? And when he something that pushes you like this and pushes you to develop like this, what do you have in your life that does this? And he said, he goes, it knocked that guy back for a loop. And the guy instantly showed that his life was empty and he was sad. And it just totally flipped the script on that guy. And it just made him realize. So instead of, giving like the macho, answer, it's like, what do you do that pushes you and to be better and all this and everything? It's like reframing it like that. And it's like everybody needs something. I'm like, I don't care if it's gardening. It's like, well, what's going to make your life better? What do you have? And if you don't have something, well, then you don't have it, and your life's going to go downhill because life's tough, and it's so easy to be, negative and toxic and complaining, especially times like this, and it's like most people don't have that. And when you find jiu-jitsu and you start making those changes, especially if you're coming from a bad place or things are going downhill, these changes are going to make people not comfortable because it's also a mirror of what they're not doing, and I mean, this is just like, when people train, start this, it's like, there's a lot of barriers to help have them continue, and so, I mean, I'm glad that you guys didn't have to deal with that, but there's, I remember when I was a trainer, and it's like I would hire someone would hire me to get them in shape, and their spouse is like eating ice cream in front of them all the time, or whatever. And it's like, well, how are they're pulling you down, and so luckily you guys didn't have that. But I remember so many times I bypassed a social life with going out partying and all that stuff because I needed to train. And I got so much crap for that from everybody, like, oh, just come out, drink with us, do this or do that and everything. And I'm like, I'm gonna go train. And those same people that gave me crap about that are doing the exact same thing right now. They're probably sitting on the same bar stools right now, having the same drama right now and all that stuff. And I'm so glad that I didn't get pressured. But actually, like when I moved to Virginia, I left, everything I knew. And I was able to kind of like break free and start over and really try and be the person I wanted to be through jiu-jitsu, and that's a hard thing. So, I mean, I had to do that as a black belt. I had some negative people around me. And so it's like I started my whole journey differently. And now I'm very protective of that. But like with like newer students and things like that, when you see, it's like, yeah, they need something good in their life. You kind of see like how strong that pull is with jiu-jitsu versus the negativity, the negative circles out there, and that's something hard because, luckily I didn't have to do that with you guys. You guys did that with yourselves, and I can't do that for you guys. Just like Mike, you're, with your academy, it's like you see a new student come in, it's like you see all that potential, and you want it so bad because what it does for you.
Yeah.
But when they don't follow through, it's just like it just like, oh, you have no idea, because they have no idea what they're missing out on. They could be the next, Mike Torres, they could be the next Lionel. They could, it's like they don't know, because all of us when we started had no idea what we were doing. And it's like I feel like I'm still scratching the surface. And that's like the biggest thing is that community that we have. When we start jiu-jitsu, we make these subtle changes, and some are more apparent than others, but some, I mean, if you get really serious about it, like you guys are, that can cause, conflict, because you're being selfish, but you're being selfish in a good way, because you're working on yourselves, and the better you guys are, the more you bring to the table for everybody else, like, so it's like, how much are you giving to everybody else because of everything that you put into yourself, with jiu-jitsu. It's a powerful thing, and that's something that I wish that new people would understand. But it's something you can't really understand unless you really see it through, of like how powerful this thing is. I mean, I've met some of the greatest people ever through jiu-jitsu, you know, and it's not about, you know, what position or occupation that guy has, or, you know, what they drive or whatever. It's, you know, we see ourselves who we are, you know, when we put the gi on, when we're on the mats and we're pushing ourselves, you know. But yeah, it's really cool. You know, it's really cool. You know, what are, like, as far as like keeping the path and all that, like, what are some of the hardest obstacles you guys had? Because I mean, that's the other thing, is things happen, like injuries, or you know, job change, or you know, anything. Like what's one of the hardest things that you guys have had to overcome to continue to keep training and on the path and all this stuff?
Yeah, well, at least for me, I would have to say for sure was the motorcycle accident that I had in
Man.
2013. It's actually a funny thing, because like that motorcycle accident came like 2 days after you had promoted me to purple belt.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you know, the team, we went to Virginia Beach and we competed.
Yeah.
Yeah, we went to Virginia Beach that weekend, and we competed. And I think Mike was in Korea at the time already.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it was in Korea.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that was the summer that you left. And then yeah, that knee injury was brutal. I mean, I couldn't walk for like 6 months. I mean,
you had to have 2 surgeries.
Yeah, I had 2 surgeries. Yeah,
I couldn't. It was ACL, LCL, and PCL, all 3 gone, right?
Yeah, they were all gone.
Man.
And I remember after the second surgery, like it was like 2 or 3 weeks after the second surgery, I was like back on the mat with that knee brace.
Yeah.
You were like, I'm gonna call your mom.
Still listen to me too. Yeah.
I'm gonna call your mom.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I was like, oh yeah, no, I'm just gonna stand over here on the side, because I just wanted to be around that energy, man.
Yeah.
But if there was a reason, if there was an obstacle, that would have been it right there.
Yeah.
But like,
Yeah.
I kind of stuck it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah. What about you, Mike?
As far as like, I feel like it's just an ongoing battle with you know, life obstacles. I think for me, it's like just kind of pinpointing like one thing. I guess like the one thing that really got to me was actually very recently. Was kind of like staying on the path and like continuing my jiu-jitsu journey. Was like when I got this job. It was like my first like real job out of the military, outside of jiu-jitsu. And it was a company I was working for, and it was great pay and all this other stuff. And I started to find myself like going backwards, you know. And I would go. I was like, okay, well, I feel myself gaining weight. I feel myself feeling sluggish. My mental state isn't clear. I'm constantly upset. I'm constantly like in this negative mood. I remember just like driving downtown, or driving, because I used to work for different hospitals. I would just drive downtown or go somewhere to another hospital, and I would just look like my left and my right, and I would just see people just like this like pissed off face. Like they're just so pissed off at traffic. They're just so pissed off having to go to work and things like that. And I was like, I just don't want to be that person. I don't want to be that person that that feels that way every day, you know, that goes into work with a bad attitude just because I was just driving in terrible traffic. You know? And then not only that, but like you kind of bring it home with you. You know, you bring it home with you, and your family feels it. You know, your training stops. So I think that was like a milestone for me. It was like, okay, I was meant to do jiu-jitsu. Like it's meant for me to do jiu-jitsu. I don't see my life going any other way. At that point, that was like that turning point for me, where I decided to quit my job. Like I quit overnight. I was like, you know what, I'm done with this. I can't do this no more. I quit my job, and then that week I started an LLC for Torres Jiu-Jitsu, and I was brown belt, and I was like, you know what, it's either now or never. And I think one thing that was holding me back was the fact that I was a brown belt and I wasn't a black belt yet, because I was like, okay, I want to be a black belt before I open my academy. And I think at that point I was I'm just gonna do it, start real small, real basic, 2 classes per week, and then it kind of helped me get me back into the right mindset, distracted me, pull me back into that lifestyle of just constantly training, looking at competitions, things like that. And I think it's just kind of easy to get caught up in life, especially now, like all the different things that are going on.
Yeah. Oh,
So
yeah.
I think that biggest obstacle was stepping out of a life full of jiu-jitsu, going to a day-to-day job, and then trying to pull myself back into that lifestyle that I had previous to that job. And and it almost makes you kind of relate to a little bit to more people too, because you start to realize that, okay, I know what you're going through right now, and I've been there, and you have to drag yourself out of that. You have to dig deep and pull yourself out of that slump. And again, just be selfish with your time.
Yeah. No, I know what you're talking about. I mean, because it's like I remember that period. Because we were both going through some very, very, very hard things. And even though we were separated, by states distance, and we had fallen out of contact with each other, and we both had some really, really difficult things going on. It's like, we were both in that like big negative slump, And I mean, I was still, teaching, training every day, but I mean, I was in a really, really, really bad place for a while. And I mean, it was hard, but I've gone through a few like really, really hard things, that just felt like, if not for jiu-jitsu, it certainly would destroy me. I would not be here today if it weren't from jiu-jitsu, because I love it so much, and I love my students so much, and I love giving so much that, everything can be as horrible as it can be. But guess what? I have a class to teach. I have students to give to. I have this. So it's like I get to like escape my own pain for a while and then come back to that. But still, it's like, sometimes you don't do such a good job of that. You just, you're just escaping it a little bit, but you're not really using jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. Well, people go there to escape from their lives. They go to you. So like, if you're in that kind of mode, then you're doing a disservice to your students. So it's almost like you have to force yourself out of that.
Yeah. Because you don't have your place.
Yeah.
And everything. And it's like, finally getting the strength and getting the clarity enough, to be able to do that with yourself. It's hard, but I mean, those obstacles are very, very real, and I mean, it's like you certainly pulled yourself out of that, which is, awesome, and everything. And it's like, things are really hard, it's like, just like this whole situation. But like when, the other week when, the whole like Corona shutdown and things like that, started happening, and people are freaking out, everybody's freaking out, of course. And I remember the first meeting I did with all like the East Coast affiliates, and some of these guys are people that I've been some of my teammates and best friends with since the beginning. And this like calm got put over me like right away, because I'm like looking around, I'm like, okay, well, these are just guys that we have all been through hard things before with, and we count on each other. And I'm like, well, this is no different. Jiu-jitsu is going to get us through, will get us through, because that's who we are, and having that support system, definitely helps, get through hard things. And it's like, that's why you got to stay dedicated and true to this, and to yourself, and with the daily, discipline practices, because it's so easy, especially when you gain skill. When you can be on the mat and you can fake it and you can be like tapping people out and sweeping and everything, but in your mind that you're not doing everything you should be doing, and it's hidden. People are like, oh, look at your skill set. That's awesome. But you're not exhausting yourself like you should. You're not doing all the things that you should, and that catches up. And you got to pull yourself out of it exactly like a brand new student does, just by forcing the new routine. And then there's that period where it's like you're in adaptation mode, because you're pushing yourself, and then it becomes the new habit. And then so it's like, just that's one thing like white belts don't realize. Like, we go through that too. You're gonna hit so many walls through your training, because that's life. And if you don't have an anchor, to you, that's something hard, something that's positive, something that's going to push you. If you take that out, then your chances of getting through those situations the best way possible for you and all those around you, that success rate possibility is going to be very, very minimal. And then everything is like, so it's like when we get those things, we got to look at where we're being lazy, and not really doing everything that we tell our students that they should do, because we can be good liars sometimes, because our skill set is higher, than those people. We don't get exposed, but yeah. So like, so you guys have never quit, which is amazing, and you're defying the odds. And what are some of the proudest accomplishments you've had through jiu-jitsu? It doesn't have to be like competition, but like, what are some of the things that you're so like proud of, that had either with jiu-jitsu or through jiu-jitsu?
As far as for me, I think one of the things that I'm most proud of is sticking with it, like even with with all of like life's hardships and the injuries and having to move around the world and things like that, and still finding these little pockets to train. Like, I still make an effort to go train. But two is the relationships. Like, that's probably like the biggest part of jiu-jitsu that I feel like goes unspoken, is the relationships that you build through training. And I remember the proudest moment I felt was when I first taught a kid an armbar. It was Gavin.
I saw him the other day.
Yeah, I mean, I remember teaching Gavin an armbar when I was teaching kids class in your place, and then he pulled it off in competition, and it was just like a mind blowing moment, and I was like, oh man, it was awesome. But yeah.
Yeah.
I think sharing what's important to you with other people is gratifying within itself. I would consider that my like proudest type of moment, I guess.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I think like for me, I have a few very proud moments, like competition, opening up an academy and getting my black belt. But like the black belt and then open up an academy, it's about like more the students and the people that you kind of interact with, just seeing like that spark of creativity in your students that train with you on a daily basis, that you teach, seeing how their passion develops because you're just so passionate about it, right? You're so passionate about training, you're so passionate about jiu-jitsu, and you start to see your students start to gain that passion, and you start to see that curiosity, you start to see that creativity, you see that change in lifestyle, you see the commitment coming more and more, the dedication to showing up to training every single day, putting hours on the mat. We do a thing where we run bleachers on Sunday mornings. We haven't done it in a while because of this whole thing, but we run bleachers on Sunday morning, and sometimes it'll be like 8, 9, 10 of us. Sometimes it'll just be 3, 4, 5. But it's having those moments like that where it's like, okay, like you don't have to wake up on a Sunday morning at 9 o'clock. You don't have to wake up on Sunday morning at 8 o'clock to show up and run bleachers, which is like terrible, you know. But you do it because you know it's going to benefit you. But definitely like opening up my academy, having something that's mine, something that I've worked towards for many years. And I think in my last podcast that I did with Travis Took, I mentioned like one of the biggest the biggest advice I can give anybody is to do a internship, to have a mentor, to invest in a mentor. And I was lucky enough to have two mentors. You know, I had you and I had Travis, and obviously my mentorship started with you. So I got to see how you developed things and how you taught, and how things were operated with you. And then once you kind of do that, you start to have more of a sense of like of a direction of where you want to go. And then going with Travis was like, you know, the topping. It was just so much more education that was available to me. And then, you know, opening up and then finally going to that point where you did like pretty much like a 4-year internship, then looking at your opening up your own academy. Within those 4 years, I had a very modest lifestyle. My lifestyle was very like, you know, just jiu-jitsu, really it, you know, buying cheap gis and things like that, and just kind of like really just spending all my money on gas to travel to jiu-jitsu classes, to travel to train, to travel to compete. And then now it's like I have an academy, and I got to see that academy grow within a year and a half. We started in a small garage. 10 months later, we moved into an almost 2,000 square foot warehouse. And a year later, we're moving into a 3,000 square foot warehouse. So in July, we'll be in a bigger space, you know? So it's like getting to see that like all the things that I've invested improve. You know, I want to give my students the best academy, the best instructions, the best type of training. And that's kind of what I'm really, really focused on right now, is just being a standout academy in my community.
Yeah. So then now, as you've gone through with your journey, you know, now and then looking back, like what are some of the differences you see and experience in jiu-jitsu between now when you first started training, you know, good and the bad, you know, both in the academy, jiu-jitsu in general? Like what are some of the differences you see now as a master one black belt, you know, than a 19-year-old white belt?
Yeah. Like as far as like jiu-jitsu as a whole as a community, it's changed in a way where it's positive. There are some negatives, but like it's positive in a way where there's so many more resources out there. There's so many more black belts. There's so many more people out there with so much experience to offer. That jiu-jitsu is really starting to, well, I could say it has peaked. Like it's peaking, you know, it's becoming way more popular. And also I think it kind of goes by region and state. I know Texas is like the most standout states when it comes to jiu-jitsu. You know, that might be a bias. I know some people might argue about that. I'm not saying number one.
Jiu-jitsu in Texas, man.
Yeah, I'm not saying that Texas is number one, but Texas is definitely like on the map as far as jiu-jitsu. And with that in mind, as far as like running a business, it is competitive. It's competitive in a way because now you have to think outside the box. You know, kind of like we were talking about before. It's not just about like training hard and doing this and that. You know, it's how are you changing people's lives? What are you doing to give back to the community? You know, what is making you a standout academy, separate from the rest? Things like that. Like I think that the times has changed in the point where people have more options. You know, they have more options to train somewhere. They have more options to do other things. Whereas, like, you know, when we found jiu-jitsu, is because we're kind of you know, it was very unique in a way. But I think like now, from when I was younger to where I was at now, I think jiu-jitsu is in a good place. You know, I think jiu-jitsu is going to thrive even after this whole, you know, current situation our countries, and it's going to thrive for the next couple of years. It's going to get better. It's going to get stronger. People are going to get more interested in it. It's going to build up, things like that. So I'm excited to see where the next like 2-3 years, takes us. So
Yeah, nice. And what about you, Lionel? What are some of the biggest differences between now and then that you notice?
It's more of the same. It's just a lot bigger. Like you can go down the street and you can ask somebody if they ever heard of jiu-jitsu, and like there's a high probability that they're probably gonna know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
With the popularity of like UFC and the popularity of just jiu-jitsu within itself. I mean, the community speaks for itself. People are making their living off of this now. So like, I can't wait to see how it's going to continue to grow. The market's going to continue to grow. And I feel like it's just important that the right message just keeps getting passed down.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, it's, there's, so much, so much has changed when I first started. And, like you have more options, but that's a double-edged sword, because like, I will tell you that as an academy owner, I mean, you guys know that, like, I've never held back. It's like you ask me something, I will give every single thing. And that's one of the things, like a good instructor is just like, I love jiu-jitsu so much and I want to see people successful so much that I will give every single thing I have. The problem sometimes though is like, it's also, a lot of it is unearned but like with so many options, like I'll have students that their technique is god awful, and I won't see them in the academy all the time, but they'll be buying every, live, like download every, instructional there. It's like, I got students ask me so many times, oh, I'm trying this thing, I'm trying that thing, I'm trying that thing. And I'm like, why are you, I'm like, you don't even have a hip escape, or you don't have this or that, or, it's like, I would, like, you guys are mostly figuring it out on the mats with me or whatever. It's like, and not going in 1,000 different directions. It's like, we're pretty immersed. And I notice a lot of times with it's very easy for us to like think that the secret is outside. And most of the time it's like, no, we just need to like drill this more and understand this position and do this one tiny like position or situation over and over and over and over again until we can't get it wrong, versus, oh, this doesn't work. I'm gonna go on YouTube and try 50,000 things differently, instead of like, well, did you ask your instructor? Did you do a private lesson with your instructor? Like they'll spend like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars on outside things, and I don't hardly, I'll not see some of these people, and then they're still like just not doing well in the academy or something, and it's like, well, don't be frustrated, and plus, like, man, your instructors are utilize them. Like I still get private lessons, like, I mean, I would drive, 2.5 hours to Toledo. I would do private lessons. I remember back in the day, I'd do the 3-hour, 45-minute drive to Chicago, and I trained with like Carlson Sr. And it's like, I would do a semi-private class in the morning, like 3-4 guys. And then we would do the group class. It was like the group class was like at 11 a.m. or something like that. And we would do that. And Carlson never allowed me to pay him for privates. So take him to like Fogo de Chao or, he loved Chipotle and stuff like that and everything. But, it's like, and then when I started training with Solomon Shaji, I would do group classes, but I would also like pay for privates. And because it was instant feedback, and plus, the overall idea of what your jiu-jitsu is, because if you're learning from like a whole bunch of different things, it's also being disconnected versus a unifying principle that you may just be missing. like you like so many people like with jiu-jitsu so guard centric now, and guard is fun. I love playing guard. I love it. But when I first started, when you were new, the high ranks were smashing you and mounting you and just killing you from the top, because it was actually easier to find a Vale Tudo competition than a jiu-jitsu competition way back then. It's like I had my first jiu-jitsu tournament, and it was a jiu-jitsu tournament when I was a blue belt, I think. I'd been training for like 5 years, and there were no belts, no belt divisions, and there were 2 weight classes, 199 below, 200 and above. And there was like 1 purple belt, a couple blue belts maybe, and white belts, and that was like the division. And so we had less things such as, like, we didn't have YouTube back then or all that, but I had my instructors, and they would they knew my game, they knew my issues, and very often when you try and be your own coach, you might be thinking your issue is this, but it could be something totally else. Like I remember I was teaching a seminar in West Virginia, and this brown belt was there from another affiliation, and he was asking me for a better defense to a north-south choke. And I was like, better defense to a north-south choke. And I'm like, well, why are you getting north-south choked? And he's like, that's just defenses aren't working. And I'm like, walk me through how this is happening. And just by asking him questions, I was like, oh, you need better guard retention. I'm like, cut it off at the source. And I'm like, he's like, I never thought of that. And it's like instantly that, that shift, because it's an actual person that knew them. It's like, you're not asking the right questions, and we don't know. Yeah. Whereas like a lot of times, it's like your students, they'll enroll to become your student, but they don't fully realize that what that entails. And they're like, well, I just train there maybe. Sometimes they just, I have a membership and I train there, but they don't take full advantage of, like for example, Hibero Jiu-Jitsu is a system. It's not a series of moves. And so when I would go to Toledo and train with Sal and Shanji, I mean, they were in their prime, and they had nothing but white belts and blue belts and a couple purple belts to train with. And they were still winning world championships and Pans and Abu Dhabi and all that. And the reason was because they were focused on so much like principles and partial training rather than a technique. It was like, fix the position. Why are you flat? Why are you not framing? Why are you letting that guy wrap your head? Because if you take care of the principles, the other stuff is easy. Where I have students where they're trying to learn all the craziest like lapel stuff and all that stuff, but yet when we roll, I'm smashing and mounting them because they don't have the foundation of like framing, guard retention, setting up blocks and all that, because it's not fancy, but they don't utilize their instructors to the full potential. They utilize it sometimes just as a place to like train. But like, with you guys, I had a student tell me the other week that they just realized that when I teach, I'm teaching you guys everything that I do and I know, how I figured it out, because I was awful. And I had to, and it's like, Sal and Shadi poured everything into me, because like you guys, I was there all the time, it's like as much as I could. And so I paid very close attention on all the attention they gave me versus trying to look outside. And because of that, certain things got ingrained in me. And, when you see students like missing basic principles because they're trying to go after the latest, greatest, like new thing that's all fancy, but it's not serving them best. You know, and that's like the one thing I notice is like a lot of people are too like kind of like scattered, and it's not like don't look out there. You know, it's like no, do that. You know, it's like pay attention. You know, it's kind of like 80-20. You know, it's like 80% is your foundation, and it's like because you know when we would all train, we all knew each other. You know, it's just like, well, I got to watch out for this with Lionel. I got to watch out for this for Mike, and you guys had the same thing with me, and so most of it was we're ignoring part of our games because we can shut this down and then we'll be okay. And so that's where the 20% comes in, you know, of like, okay, I'm going to get this principle down and then I'm going to introduce this new thing though, you know, on top of the foundation. And that's just, but that takes patience.
Yeah, it comes full circle because if you look at it this way, like as a white belt, you're learning your basics, you're learning your fundamentals, and then you kind of get into that blue purple belt phase, and then that's when like creativity kicks in, right? Yeah. So it's like now you're confident with jiu-jitsu, you're confident with movements, and you know a few defenses and a few submissions, things like that. So therefore, you start to become a little bit creative with your jiu-jitsu.
Yeah,
it's more like a self-discovery. But then once you start to reach like that brown and black belt level, it kind of comes back to full circle because then you start to really value the foundations that you've learned and you've been through in the past. Like I'm like, and I'll tell you, like I used to do like marimbolos, inversions, and things like that. Like I was all over the place.
As you should.
Take a look at my game now is just so much tighter. It's less space being created. It's way more pressure driven. My guard is creative in a way where like I'm able to implement multiple types of guards and games within my game plan, and it's really just self-discovery. And I kind of tell my students this a lot, like you know you continue being creative with your jiu-jitsu, but never undervalue the foundations, the basics. I was doing like an online class the other day, and when I did that online class, I just taught a basic X choke, right? But then when you teach a basic X choke, like once you get to a certain level, you start to understand like different positions where you could, you know, use that submission to either get you a sweep, get you something that you really wanted, or just making that submission so much tighter. And then like for me, just like something as like basic as an X choke has become so much more advanced. In a way, because now I'm implementing just different grips and different positions, you know, defending the guard, defending the passes, using the choke or the collar grips to put pressure on somebody, using that to kill like, you know, like people's lapel gains, just putting pressure on somebody, you know. Like I have a student that's he's very creative, you know, like in a sense to where he's constantly looking at new games and new techniques that are out there, and he's constantly showing me things like that. I don't steer away from it at all. Matter of fact, like I kind of invite it in a way. I invite it so that it keeps me sharp. And then not only that, but it comes to a point where I've helped him develop whatever it is that he's trying to develop by making it tighter, by teaching him how to make it tighter, how to make it more efficient versus just like, and then it comes back to like, okay, well, there's the YouTube version of learning, and then there's the personal version of learning. Well, you see the big picture, but then once you get into like the real grit and details of the technique, you start to realize that there's so much more to that technique, right? And again, like that goes from marimbolos to a basic knee cut pass, you know, to like a fancy cartwheel pass to you know, a basic bullfight pass. So you know, I was throwing a little bit of shade out there to cartwheel passing.
Well, and Lionel made some awesome videos.
That was one time, man. That was one time.
You got
one time that I would never forget. And I'm sure
Lionel, you build 1,000 bridges, and
but one time.
Yeah. Lionel, I mean, you made some really awesome videos when you were at the academy, you know, and I remember you made like a white belt series and a blue belt series, and where you interviewed everybody, which I thought was like amazing, you know. So like for the people watching this later, like, you know, I don't know if you're still all into making videos and stuff, but like you would I remember one class you had made a video and it was all done, and I saw it pop up like 5 minutes after class ended. And I'm like, and it was awesome. And I'm like, how did you do that whole time? Because you were training. It's like you set your camera down, by the mat, and you took class or whatever. And then afterwards, you did like some weird quick edit, and it was like an awesome video. And I was like, how did you have time to do all that? But you did a series. I think you did white, blue, purple. I don't know if you did brown belt yet. But
No,
where you asked guys questions, and it was awesome.
Yeah, I only did white, blue, and purple. And then by the time that I was getting around to try to do the brown belt one, like I had moved. But the idea behind that was I wanted to ask like the same set of questions between the different ranks, and wanted to see if the answers would change.
Yeah.
So I asked, the first one was the white belt video. And I think we had, I think Hector was like the guy who I was interviewing the most. He was a white belt at the time.
He's a purple belt now, so he's still training. Just got over meniscus surgery, so.
You could tell how old this was. And then I did the same thing for the blue belt. I just thought it was really cool, man, to kind of do that, and I just liked hanging out with the dudes at the academy so much. It was kind of making a memory for myself as well.
Oh yeah, but I think what you're also doing is kind of, as we watch that later, kind of putting in perspective each stage. So like a white belt is like know nothing, and I tell my students, like, focus on the system that if your instructor is a good instructor, he has a system. It's like, do they come from a good lineage? Do they know what they're talking about? Or are they, it's like, what kind of a black belt are they? Do they have a system that they can reproduce? And that's restrictive in its nature, it's like, do this. And we kind of don't like that sometimes. We kind of want to do what we want to do, which is totally understandable. But like the blue belts, like you guys were my two fastest blue belts, 5.5 months. And I mean, it was to a point where I remember that I ran you guys through the same test that I run today, and it was tough, and you guys passed with flying colors because you guys knew the principles. It's like you knew what you needed to do. And because you had that foundation, it's like, okay, blue belt, it's like you get your blue belt. That means like we're starting to speak the same language. Like, what you should do and shouldn't do. And then, okay, you accomplished your blue belt. And that's also where most people quit. But the blue belt phase is like the exploratory phase. It's like, okay, you know how to not die. It's like, basically how to not die. You're still dying on the mat all the time, but you know how to not die. And then you can take a new person off the street and just like play around with them. But that's like your phase where keep what you have, but man, the world of techniques are plentiful. And that's where you figure out what's all out there. You throw a whole bunch of things on the wall, see what sticks. And then purple belt is like where you have an idea of what your personal game is, with the foundation and the principles, and then the 20%. It's like it's like, I want you to do Baron Bolos. I want you to do, whatever, and all this stuff and everything. Find out, but know why it works and why it doesn't work, and tailor that to you. And so I see purple belt as like you're starting to narrow. It's like blue belt, you're going wide out. Purple belt, you're starting to narrow. Brown belt's an almost black belt. Just need more time to cook. And then black belt is like, you should know all the games, but your game. This is my game. I need and so like what I tell people, I go in phases because, to go back, you have to be training with a purpose. You have to be drilling with a purpose. Because if you don't have a purpose, you don't have an aim, then you're just going to get trapped where maybe you just are rolling and you don't know what you're good at and what you're bad at. And that's also why competition, I think, is good, where it's like you get to like prove your point and see where you're right and where you're wrong and where you can grow. And it's like a big stress test at each belt. And, it's like you as a black belt, I tell people, I'm like, I'm not going to like really train stuff that I can't pull off on my absolute worst day against somebody at the world championships, because that's, but I go in phases. So I do my training camps where I like, like 6-8 weeks out, I know what I know, and I'm not adding anything else to my game. I'm just sharpening that. And then afterwards, I go on my R&D phase, and I just have fun, because I want to explore something new. Because post competition, I found out where I'm lacking. So that's the time to mess around and have fun, and gain a new skill, or also find out what you're also terrible at, and everything, and have fun with that. And then when the next tournament phase starts coming in, okay, now let's narrow our game down again. And we added a little bit. But if you try and add everything, it's like you don't know what you're good at and what you're bad at. I remember when Salo once, he told me, he was like, Ben, you're tough. I was a 3-stripe purple belt. He's like, Ben, you're tough out there. It's like, I've won a few things and all that. And he's like, but you don't know what you're doing. And I was like, well, what do you mean? And he's like, well, why did you win that match over there? I don't know. Maybe I had a good day. Maybe the guy had a bad day. Maybe he was hurt. Maybe I don't know. Why did you lose that match over there? Maybe the guy was better than me. I don't know. Maybe I had a bad. I don't know. And then it hit me. It's like, oh, I don't know what I don't know, and I don't know what I do know. And so then I've inventoried my game. So I know what I know, and I also know, kind of like what I don't know. And so then I have that confidence of like, well, here's my skill set, and here's what I'm not going to allow. And I don't just go out there hoping I win or something. I have, it's like I go out there and I have my game that I've drilled over and over and over again. And I just like, I just insert the program and press play now, and that's certainly helped me so much, because now I have a purpose when I train and when I roll. What's my objective that day? Is it to get better at a specific technique or situation, or is it just to move a little bit today? Because sometimes that's all your training needs to be. It's just to move a little bit today, and just break a funk or something like that. Other days it's I'm winning my division day, but it all has to have a purpose. And if it doesn't have a purpose, it's like, we love training, but then it can get so like kind of boring sometimes, especially when you're a higher skill. I mean, there have been times where I've rolled with somebody who's such a lower level with me that I've lost interest during the roll. Have you ever done that, where it's like you just like mentally check out because they're not testing you? But that's also a good situation for you to get better, because if you had an objective, you're like, well, I'm just going to work this, then that we'll both get something out of it. But if you don't have a purpose and objective and you're a higher rank, you can very easily get lazy and just kind of like, very, very aimless. And then you start not doing the discipline things that got you there in the first place. And then when you're a black belt, or a brown belt, and you lose your discipline and you're hiding, and you can tap people out because you got those skills while those other guys are hungry and they're doing what they need to be doing, you're going to get exposed, and that's, that's not good. That's something that I want to avoid at all costs. Is I want to be actively pursuing a goal every single time I step on the mat, versus just like, let's roll kind of thing. You know, that's some of the things that I found out like later on, you know, with jiu-jitsu, you know, with the high, that's one of the like the upper rank problems that can creep up on you, is because we have so much like false success. You know, when you're the one in the room that doesn't have to be so worried about everybody catching you. It's like you can coast, and it's like, and that's a hard reality when you've coasted and you've done it for too long, that's a habit, and then you get woken up by somebody who's just like a world beater and all over you, and then
Yeah.
and then you're like a white belt all over again, and you have to make that hard choice of changing all those habits. Like, are you drilling? Are you what's your daily discipline like? You know, because I mean, this is a hard thing. You know, it's a hard thing. We have injuries and all that stuff, and we can get very lazy because we have some skills. And if we don't keep pushing, you know, just like, you know, everything we do that got us to this point, it's like just like going down the highway. We'll be going 100 miles an hour. You take the foot off the gas, long enough distance, you're going to be at a complete stop. You know, so it's like you can't, but you won't feel it for a while. You know, and it's really hard to get that turned around because you are your habits. You know, and it's so hard because like I've seen, you know, with martial art business magazines, it's like you look at the cover of a lot of those successful academy owners. Most of them are fat. You know, most of them don't train. And I understand why, because the stress of running a business and being so busy of running classes and giving and giving and giving and giving that they leave behind what got them there in the first place. You know, and every time I look through like, you know, martial art, you know, business magazines and stuff, and I see some of those owners that it's like, yeah, they run a successful school, but are they the example of the student that, you know, should be inspiring everybody? You know, some of that is like, no, you know, it's like they're good people or hard workers, you know, but are you doing the work in the dark that got you there in the first place still? You know?
Well, that's very militant as well in a way, you know, because like when you're in the military, you're like held to the standard, and I mean Lionel can definitely tag in on this, but you're held to the standard first of all, and then if you don't meet that standard, well, then what example are you? What message are you sending out to your you know, your peers and your subordinates, things like that? Well, it's the same thing as martial art. You know, you have to you have to have a lot of self accountability, you know, as a martial artist, black belt, as academy owner, because when you have students, like, you want your students to be a reflection of, you know, kind of with you. You want your students to see, you know, they want your students to look up to you regardless. You know, you should never undervalue your position as a coach either. Because the moment that you start to think less of your position is the moment that your students start to see less, right? And you always, that's why, like, when I do competitions, like like, and you do the same thing. I've kind of learned this more from you, is you get the whole team ready, you know, develop as a team. You use that terminology, team, because it's so important, because, you know, I could compete individually. I could travel around the country and compete, no problem. But if I don't have a group of people on the same page as me, well, how well am I developing? You know, how well am I developing as a martial artist? You know, well, then it starts to hold yourself accountable, hold your students accountable. Your students start to hold you accountable. So it's like when I do these competitions, I'm constantly encouraging my students to compete, and it's never really about the medal. You know, it's about more the process than anything, because I know that they're going to come out of this a different person. They're going to come out of this like way better than when they were prior to it, right? Whether they win or they lose, because the sacrifices have been made. You know, sacrifices of eating right, sleeping right, time management, showing up to training, giving your 100% effort, and it starts to build this culture. It builds a culture within your academy, which develops, like, you know, develops killers, develops people who are hungry. They want to train hard. They like to train hard. There's nothing wrong with training hard. It's something I tell my students all the time. There's nothing wrong with training hard and being fierce with your roles. You just have to have the right intentions. You have to have the right mindset.
Yeah.
Obviously, safety is the number one thing, right? But I want them to push me. I want them to try to kill me. And I have students, like some of my students, like they do catch me. They'll catch me. Especially like we were talking about those days where you're just kind of going through the motion a little bit. You had a long day, you're tired, and it might be like your second or third training session of the day as well. And then you're like, man, I'm just going to go through the motion today. And then bam, you got caught. Well, I should have never gave him that inch because I gave him that inch and he took the mile. So I'm paying for it right now. Right. And then, which I don't have a problem with my students tapping me out. I think something that's
a good thing
as well. Like you should never have a problem with your students tapping you out because that's just showing you that they're learning the right things.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I do, like I have this 19-year-old kid or 20-year-old kid that, he's a monster. He's long-legged, very feisty, very fierce with his rounds, and he'll catch me. And like by the time we're done with like a 7 or 8 minute round, I'm like completely drained, and I'm like moving on to the next person. It's like, okay, well, this person is not going to come any easier because the culture has already been set.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's going to be hard training regardless.
Yeah.
And like as a black belt, as somebody who owns the academy, you're definitely held to a higher standard.
Yeah, you should be. That's why it's so disappointing when you see black belts that don't hold themselves. It's like when you're a police officer and you look at like a police officer and he's like, so beast overweight. It's like people, people look at it like, they have an issue with that. But if that person was just in street clothes, they wouldn't have an issue with that because that uniform represents something that's bigger than you. It's a standard, and I had this former teammate who had very, toxic, unhealthy lifestyle. And you could just tell by looking at that person. And I'm like, do you tell people and families and stuff like that jiu-jitsu is like a healthy lifestyle and all that stuff? I'm like, all right, would you put yourself on a poster and say, train your whole life and you'll be just like me? Would they sign up immediately or would they run out the door? We're all flawed and all that stuff. And I certainly have all mine and everything, but that's just something where I think is so important because, you're a symbol, like when I put my gi on, I have no right to give less than 100% or, I want to look like a proper standard. I want people to look at me and say, that person, they respect the way they present themselves because you're presenting, and you're not just showing a move. It's like, you guys know now that when you guys are showing stuff, like you're giving the most intimate part of you to these people. It's like you're giving a part of your soul, and you're giving everything you have. And I would want to do it properly. Like I'd want to, it's like the degree I have from Solomon Shang. It's like it's a degree from Harvard. And actually my black belt has opened more doors for me and done more for me in my life and career than my college degree, than anything else like that. And just like you go to a high level Ivy League school, it's like you would hope that the professor there has their stuff together and that they are taking it totally seriously and everything's a high level, and a lot of some do and some don't. It's like when I step on the mat, I want to give full respect to everything that because it's not me, it's everything that's been handed down to me, by my instructors. It's like they gave everything to me because I showed up every day, and they poured their heart and soul. And who did that for them? And then who did that for them? It's like the whole lineage thing. It's like this is a big thing, a big responsibility that all these people paved the way for. And when it's all said and done, I'm like, who am I? But I would like, when I'm gone from this world, that I did my part to make jiu-jitsu a little bit better and to take what was given to me and leave it a little bit nicer. You know, it's like when you stay at somebody's house, you know, it's like you don't just like rummage through everything, you know, leave everything dirty and then walk out like, thanks, you know, and everything. It's like, you'd want it to leave it a little bit nicer than when you found it, and take that real serious, and you know, give your all, because this is something that changes lives. And if you don't take it seriously and you think like, okay, I'm gonna like look like garbage and I'm just gonna, you know, not be professional and everything like that, like how much are you taking away versus how much more can you give? You know, and when you look at it in that perspective, it's a big responsibility, and you want to put your best foot forward. And it's kind of like the old, you know, the old quote, you know, Musashi quote, you know, if you know the way, you see it in all things. Like, I mean, if you're disciplined, I mean, you guys are military. It's like, why do they make you guys do so many things that is, I mean, it's like, okay, if your boots aren't shined and this and that, it's like, you know, what has that got to do with carrying out a mission on the battlefield? Well, you guys know it has a lot to do with that, because if you can't do the little things right and attention to detail, you know, like you're fighting for your life and you have to use jiu-jitsu. So how, you know, if you had to rely on it, which we all have on many reasons, like, you know, it's like, are you glad that you paid a lot of attention to the details, you know, or do you just kind of want to go through the motions and you know, you find how you train? And if you're disciplined, you're gonna, you know, when you're tired and hurt and broken, you have nothing left. It's like, well, if you did all those little hard things that you didn't want to do, but you did it anyway, well, you still have it in you to do what you need to do when there's nothing left. It's like, you'll probably have a little bit more left in you because of the importance of it. You know, just like being in Savo's Mount and me not giving up due to just sheer pressure and overwhelming, you know, it's like just an awful position. It's like, no, this is a big test. It's something bigger than that. I'll endure everything and get the lesson out of it, you know? And so it's like those little discipline things, you know, that, you know, mean a big deal, you know, and it's like, you know, setting that example, I think is just huge, you know, and something that we kind of like sometimes forget about because we can gain skill and tap people out and we have these like superpowers and so some things become easier, but yet, you know, it's like comfort is a slow death, you know, and it all creeps up. So, you know, as you know, we kind of, you know, getting back into all this, like what kind of piece of advice would you guys give now at this stage to like someone who is in your position in the beginning stages, you know, like, cause this is a whole new generation. It's like the Jiu-Jitsu Institute students that are watching this now that, you know, some of them know who you guys are. Some have no idea who you two are, you know, and, you know, we have this big academy. I mean, we're doing everything live stream right now, but you know, with you guys, we couldn't have 6 people on the mats at the same time training. Now I got a 2,000 square foot judo sprung floor, you know, and everything. It's like, so like what these guys, you know, they have these things, but they don't have the perspective that you guys have, you know? So like what kind of pieces of advice would both of you guys give, you know, to people who were in your position when you first started and they have everything now, but they don't, you know, they kind of don't know yet?
Yeah.
Man, at least for me, the 2 biggest pieces of advice I would give is, one, have fun, man. Just have as much fun with it as possible. Especially now during these times, like it's become very apparent, like how much we all miss being able to be on the mat and things like that, and we kind of take those things for granted when we go every day, and then like, you know, we get a little lazy with all of our responsibilities, and will train only like 3 times a day. I know I'm itching to get back on the mat. So that's for one thing. And two is like, take full advantage of having a professor there all the time. Like for me, the school that I go to, the professor's not there all the time. So a lot of the drills that we do is pretty much like almost like we kind of come up with it on the fly. So that would be my 2 biggest pieces of advice.
Yeah. Nice.
For me, like, if you find yourself in a situation where you're peaking and things are starting to, like, that light bulb starts to kind of fade a little bit, that's the time where you kind of just have to push through it, right? Because that's not going to be the first time or the last time it ever happens. Like, I think jiu-jitsu is meant to challenge you in ways where you there's days where you feel like you're just not doing everything right, and it's one of the hardest things that I can say that I've ever done is jiu-jitsu, and then you just kind of have to get past that process, because there's always going to be, the ultimate goal is to get the black belt. And I think a lot of times too, like, one of the biggest advices that I can give somebody is to speak it into existence, as to saying that, yeah, I am a black belt. I will be a black belt. Not that I am a black belt, that I will be a black belt. Not that one day, hopefully I'll be a black belt. No, I will be a black belt. It may come 5, 10, 15, 20 years later, but you will become a black belt. And the moment that you start with that mindset, it puts you in the right path to get there.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you become what you are. You
yeah.
know? I mean,
So,
it's like, I ask my kids and my adult students, I'm like, do you need to be a black belt to train like a black belt? No. Fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's,
that would be some advice that I would give somebody. Also, like, and again, like, I kind of said this before in the past, but investing in mentorship, investing in a team, investing in yourself, because, like, when you sign up for an academy, it's an investment for yourself, but you're going to grow with that team.
Yeah.
So if you plan on being a lifelong martial artist, or even an academy owner, will set yourself up for success by having the right people in your life.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that's man, it's a lot of good stuff, guys. A lot of really good stuff, and it's like, I was really excited to do this podcast with you two, because we had this. We're connected forever, and I'm so thankful for both of you guys and everything. And I love, it's like, I love watching your guys' journey, now. And it's like, we're forever part of this, and I'm so happy I'm glad it was both of you, and not 2 other guys. It's like, I'm glad it was both of you guys, and I couldn't be happier. And I'm just excited to see things, continue and grow and all that. And see Cairo, I can't wait to see his first jiu-jitsu lessons. It's like, we got Jay and Jacob. Jacob was on my mats when he was. Yeah, man. And it's like, now he's like 8 years old and battling 13-year-olds and winning on the mat and stuff. It's tough.
Good.
Jeez, man, tougher than I am. But yeah, it's so awesome, But yeah, I want to thank you guys again for taking time out during this, like, hard times and everything, and we get to reconnect. I definitely want to when this whole thing is over and all that, and you have your new, like, grand opening and stuff like that, I definitely want to come out and witness that and be part of that. So why don't you guys both kind of give your, like, social media and like, go promote your academy and all that stuff. And, like, Lionel, you're out in Tokyo, so, like, you can get some maybe training partners out of this and everything. So how would they get a hold of you, Lionel?
You can find me on Instagram. My Instagram handle is Sweaty Pajamas.
Of course. Yeah, man. So yeah. For sure. Maybe, who knows? Maybe you could bring more people in through your work and everything, and then in the academy, and who knows what changes that'll cause.
For sure.
Yeah. What about you, Mike?
Well, my Instagram is Torres_BJJ, and then my Facebook is Torres Jiu-Jitsu. So anybody's ever in Houston, north side of Houston, I'm in Tomball. More than welcome to come pay me a visit. We have a great atmosphere, great team. We train hard. We sweat. It's very, very hot, humid, and sweaty in my academy. There's no AC, so just be prepared to drink a lot of water.
That's the best. So he's got your academy. Then you'll be hopefully upgrading, expanding soon once this is all over.
Yeah, we're gonna be expanding. Hopefully once this thing kind of just goes over within the next 2 months, hopefully no more than that. Praying.
Oh,
but yeah, we'll be in another space, new academy, all new, everything brand new. I want to do a grand opening. I'd love to have both of you guys come out if it's possible, especially you and Lionel. I'd love to have you out there. But that grand opening will more likely be around between August, September, October timeframe. But depending on what's going on here. So I'd like to have a grand opening here. Come up.
You got a website?
TorresJiu-Jitsu.com.
Cool. Perfect. Awesome, man. Of course, I've got the Jiu-Jitsu Institute, Hibero Jiu-Jitsu Association, Yorktown, Virginia, and in Yorktown, jjinstitute.com. And we're all doing live stream classes now, but we're right in the hub with all the military, and so I have visitors all the time from all over every branch, and we love having people come in all the time and everything. So definitely, if you're in the area getting PCS or getting just TDY there for a while, it's like definitely look me up. We love to have new people train, and we make friends all over the world. But thank you both again for joining me on this, and I'd say this was a pretty good success of a first podcast, and I'm glad you guys could make it. And, definitely looking forward to doing more and seeing what we can do with this. But so that wraps up, and we'll see where this all leads. But man, there we go.
Man.
Nice. All right, guys. All right, man. Thanks a lot, and I'll just go ahead and end it now. All right. One more. Touch. Touch. Man, guys, what a journey. So first I want to thank you again, Mike and Lionel, for making the first episode possible. And, it's great to reminisce on old times, as well as seeing you both still on the path and paying it forward. I hope those that watched and listened were able to find value that will help you on your journey. I know aside from great memories and talking about old times, I got some great takeaways for sure that I'm going to implement, take some notes, and use this to, keep improving myself, my academy, my own practice. Definitely for sure. I appreciate everybody's support, and despite, being way outside my comfort zone with all this, doing podcasts in front of camera and all that, I'm really enjoying the challenge and the journey, and it's going to make me better. And I'm learning new things, getting way out of my comfort zone. So again, this is Ben Eaton, and this is Marcus Aurelius, and we're with Rolling the Grind podcast, episode 1, the Jiu-Jitsu Institute origin story. So keep grinding and stay the path. Bruce. Nice. Good work, buddy. Good job.
Thanks for watching and listening. Please like, subscribe, and share. You can find me on Instagram at BenEatonBJJ and at Rolling the Grind Podcast, and also my academy at Hibero JJ Institute. Now go out there, aim at your purpose, and stay the path.